Reading slump got you down? Simply sing out Ubik and have it delivered straight to you, anytime, any place. So fun, it basically reads itself. Warning, keep away from fire and water. Safe when used as directed. Reader discretion is advised. Welcome back to iWizard, Nikki here, and in this video I'm going to give you an overview of what Ubik is and why you should read it. So Ubik was my first Philip K. Dick novel and I absolutely loved it. It was published in 1969 and in 2005 it was named one of the 100 greatest English language novels ever published, or well, published since 1923 in Time magazine. And I did not know this before I picked it up, and I was browsing through Folio Society and I read the description about it, and it was cited as a deeply unsettling existential horror story. So already I was intrigued, and then following that was this brief ad. Your innermost thoughts are prey to unscrupulous psychics. Do you have vital information that needs to stay secret? Whether that's sensitive data on your latest business venture or the details of an extramarital affair, Runciter Associates are here to protect your privacy. For a modest fee, our expert team of inertias can nullify any malicious psychic intent, making your private life truly private. Contact us today. It found its way into my home and I just love it so much. And the illustrations in this edition are so fitting. They're by Boca. Let's see if I can find a couple for you. This is probably the most famous one out of it. And the title Ubik comes from Latin, Ubik in Latin, which means everywhere. So like ubiquitous. And each chapter begins with an epigraph, which is a mid-century style advertisement for Ubik, which is just a range of products, right? Ubik is everything. It ranges from electric cars and beer to shampoo and bras. And it's only safe when used as directed, of course. So here's my breakdown of what Ubik is about. It's 1992. Human civilization has expanded into Sol System, and some people, known as Psis, have developed psionic powers, including talents such as telepathy and precognition. Each Psi only has one parapsychic talent, the strength of which varies from person to person. Anti-talents, another type of Psi, are complementary to talents. Each anti-talent has the ability to negate a specific talent. Some Psis are exceptionally strong, so it might take 3 anti-talents to cancel out a single person's talent, or vice versa. Raymond Hollis employs Psis, mostly talents, whose mission is to intrude on people's privacy and prey on their cognitive information, including decisions they have not yet made. Headquartered in New York City, Runciter Associates is a prudence organization run by Glenn Runciter. Runciter's Psis, mostly anti-talents called inertias, keep track of Hollis's Psis and are hired to protect victims against unauthorized intrusions. One of Hollis's most powerful telepaths has disappeared from Runciter's tracking system and is likely off Earth. Those without psionic talents are called norms. Joe Chip is a norm. He's Runciter's second in command, and his job is to operate equipment that measures the strength of psi fields and manage Runciter's inertias. Gigi Ashwood, Runciter's talent scout, has located a new Psi with a unique ability. Runciter Associates recruit this new Psi as an inertia to help with a job that might elucidate the location of Nemesis, Hollis's missing Psis. This job brings Runciter, Joe, and a group of inertias to Luna, where things go terribly wrong, and nothing is as it seems. I had tons of fun reading Ubik, and PKD just drops you right into a full-on ice bath. Actually, I should probably say cold pack to be more consistent with the story, but anyway, you just have to swim. And I will admit that the first few pages I had to reread several times before moving on just to get comfortable with the terminology. But after that, it was a joy. So here are some reasons why you might want to pick up Ubik. All right, so the first reason to read Ubik is that it is intellectually stimulating. So soon after the disaster on Luna, reality begins to unravel, and it's little things at first, like little frustrating things like as soon as a cigarette is lit, it'll ash in your hand, or cream is spoiled. So our first big question is, what is causing this? What is going on? In Ubik, Philip K. Dick explores metaphysical idealism. And so that's the philosophy that proposes everything we know about reality is filtered through our own perception. So nothing can truly exist outside of the mind. I'll use Plato's allegory of the cave to illustrate this. So we have a group of prisoners who have spent their whole entire lives chained up in a cave. They can only look forward. All they see is this cavern wall. And on the cavern wall are these dancing shadows, right? Telling stories. They are the whole universe, okay, to these prisoners. But in reality, there are image makers behind the prisoners, right, putting on that show. And one day, an image maker comes to one of the prisoners and says, everything you know, all that you have seen, this is not reality. There's a whole nother world out there. So the image maker takes the prisoner into the light of the real world. It's too bright for him. He gets scared. He wants to retreat back into what he knows. And so essentially it's the same story as the Matrix, right? Neo is offered either the red pill or the blue pill.
You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
And the blue pill is that he gets to continue along in the simulation. And one of the most exciting things in Ubik is that when we're following our POV characters, we have no idea which pill they have taken. The second reason to read Ubik is the high-speed technology. And one of the most fascinating pieces of tech that Dick invents is cold pack. So if someone is dying or very, very, very recently deceased, such that there's still some synapses firing somewhere and they're placed into cold pack soon enough, it's possible for this person to remain suspended in half-life for a period of time, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a state between life and death. So while in cold pack, a psychic connection can be made between a visitor and a half-lifer so that they can communicate with each other. And so you can continue to visit with your loved one after they've passed, and they can be revived a certain number of times. So Runsiter's business partner is his half-lifer wife. So he communes with her at the Beloved Brethren Moratorium in Zurich whenever any kind of big business decision needs to be made or any kind of action plan needs to be set. So he'll just hop on a flight from New York to Zurich, which is like super speedy, like no big deal in this version of the future. And he does that right in chapter 1. And also in chapter 1, Philip K. Dick writes that burial is barbaric. And I just want to insert a biographical note here because Philip K. Dick was born on December 16th, 1928 as a twin. And his twin sister died 6 weeks after their birth. And when she was buried, of course, they had a headstone for her, but also on the headstone was Philip K. Dick's name. So it was right there already waiting for him. His ashes are there today. It is said that losing his twin sister has influenced a lot of his works and some of his obsessions with like the afterlife and perception and so forth. I'm gonna give you a couple more examples of the tech before I move on. And once again, Ubik is set in 1992, and Dick's version of 1992 is much, much different than our real 1992, and the technology is in many ways well beyond what we had in 1992, but some of the tech he uses is relevant for 2023, like electric vehicles, and PKD notes how unsatisfying it is to drive an electric car because it doesn't make any noise, it doesn't vibrate, it doesn't feel like you're doing anything, and how much more satisfying it is to drive a vintage gas-powered model.
The Prius is silent if he keeps it under 5 miles per hour. He deserves the win.
He also inserts vending machines for all different kinds of purposes, like some have medications, some have tranquilizers. He even has vending machines stocked full of amphetamines. And just a little side note here, PKD used amphetamines, well, strongly abused amphetamines throughout the 60s. And he produced 21 novels between 1960 and 1970. So with that said, though, the energy and the pacing of this novel is phenomenal. It is a high-speed thrill ride, and I bet you can probably guess why. Reason number 3. Heroics without heroes. Joe Chip is our protagonist, and he's also a mess. As far as I recall, we don't get much of a physical description of Joe, but I envision Thomas Jane for him, the actor who played Joe Miller in The Expanse. And I love that Joe seems to be competent at his job at Runciter Associates, mostly competent, but he's always at the mercy of his environment. He's not quite in the driver's seat. And so most of the electronics, appliances, mechanisms, anything in this version of 1992, a lot of things are coin operated, which has to just be so frustrating anyway. But Joe never seems to have any coins. He even needs a coin to open and close the front door of his apartment. And so he can't even get into or out of his own apartment without relying on someone else. And Ursula Le Guin once said, there are no heroes in Dick's books, but there are heroics. And a fun aside, she and Dick were both Berkeley High class of 1947, but they didn't know each other at the time, which is just so crazy. But anyway, Joe Chip is our non-hero. He doesn't have a talent or even an anti-talent. He's just a norm with a terrible credit score to top it off. And he must perform these acts of heroism. And he at one point, even quite graphically battles entropy. Reason number 4. Mid-century feel without the feel. I absolutely love the aesthetics in Ubik. And there's also this crazy fashion and anti-fashion that's all over the place, like tabby fur blazers and spider silk coats. And I think that's mostly because of a scarcity of resources. Okay, so scarcity of ruminant animals and leather and so forth. But I also envisioned mid-century offices and mid-century furniture, and I can't recall if it was ever actually described that way or if I'm just drawing from the ad epitaphs, because they really do have a 1950s, 1960s ad read feel. And once again, the advertisements are always for Ubik, and it's really to paint in your brain, right? Just like any advertisement does. It doesn't matter what the product is, right? Ubik represents some magic solution that will make your life better as long as you follow the instructions and use it as directed, of course. And in general, it's clear that Philip K. Dick saw advertising as an attempt at precognition, telepathy, and mind control. Okay, and in the book, both sides use this. Okay, Hollis's talents and Runciter's inertias use ad placements. Hollis's are targeted based on precog info, and Runciter's warn that people might be victims of psi intrusions, but both are just still out to make money, right? And Runciter Associates, their ads typically proclaim, defend your privacy from all media. Does that sound familiar? Like VPN ads today, or using privacy browsing to prevent cookies, right? So really, I think we're one brain implant away from MT Anderson's feed, which is just absolutely terrifying. And in Ubik, capitalism is kind of out of control and everything is transactional. And you even need coins for cooking and showering in your own home. And here's a snippet from a conversation between Joe and a coffee shop ordering speaker. One of these days, Joe said wrathfully, people like me will rise up and overthrow you, and the end of tyranny by the homeostatic machine will have arrived. The day of human values and compassion and simple warmth will return, and when that happens, someone like myself, who has gone through an ordeal and who genuinely needs hot coffee to pick him up and keep him functioning when he has to function, will get the hot coffee, whether he happens to have a postcred readily available or not. He lifted the miniature pitcher of cream, then set it down. And furthermore, your cream or milk, or whatever it is sour. And so we might actually already be on that timeline, right? It's probably a similar situation, and maybe it all just is a simulation. Anyway, last but not least, number 5. The ending it inspires discussion, which tells you just from that is a brilliant book. It's an ending that puts into question all that you thought you'd figured out. And then it makes you excited to go talk to your friends about it, your interpretation, and find out how they interpreted it. And part of the fun of my first read through was, of course, the uncertainty and not knowing what was going on or what was going to happen. But this is one of those books where I can see reading it again and again and again and not getting sick of it, not getting bored of it, getting something new out of it each and every time. So Ubik is a truly edifying work of science fiction. And as a scientist, while I'm reading science fiction, I try not to pay too close attention to the science because I'm not trying to pull it apart. I am trying to escape into the world that the author creates. And I was only pulled out of the story for a second. And it was in this conversation Joe Chip was having with someone. And Joe likes to correct people if they say something incorrectly. And maybe then PKD did this on purpose, but someone was talking about negative ions. And Joe's like, well, that's repetitive because all ions are negative. No, there are also positive ions called cat ions because cats are positive, right? And negative ions are anions. But that's all. And I'm going to wrap it up there so this review doesn't end up being super, super long. So I'm just going to talk about what is next on the TBR for me is Clash of Kings. And I'm trying to catch my way up to Jordan in Song of Ice and Fire. And so after Storm of Swords, we're going to do a discussion together. And so if you'd like to stay up to date with iWizard, please subscribe to this channel, like this video, follow us on social media, and I'll see you next time. Bye.